It's Monday, the 15th of October, halfway through spooky season. Oh no, don't tell my betrothed. She would be disappointed. It's halfway through. But not to her because, it's a year-round thing. Getting Halloween decorations and spookying it up. Spooky bitch. This is a tune called Dreams Don't Come True, and there's that little brief moment of musical hope and back to the lost. The voice isn't even warmed up. Yeah, this song is called Dreams Don't Come True. And it's musical poetry to me. It's something that I wrote years ago in a band called The Mechanical Heart. And the melody and the bass and everything are meant to leave you wanting. Like, what is this? It's a whole musical journey type thing called Dreams Don't Come True. And I thought that was a fitting intro for today's broadcast, because I'm going to be talking about difficult subject. And I actually didn't have permission, actually. Not that I needed permission, but it was recommended that I don't talk about early childhood stuff, because I'm in the middle of doing EMDR along with traditional CBT therapy. And some stuff kind of like busted up through the sewer system, I guess, like memories started flooding up. Just, they were nasty. It was like sewage. And the last session, I had a big to-do thing. And after that, she was like, well, there's, that thing I said before about not talking about your childhood, you can do that now. I'm changing the rules. So, without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro. Welcome, everyone that are here. I'm glad that you're here. Good morning, Beach. Good morning, Dawn. Good morning, Poet. Good morning, Barb. Good morning, FXP. Good morning, my love. Good morning, Amy. Ding. Okay, I want to get some things out of the way first. First and foremost, down there's the link for Buy Me a Coffee. I have put Bugatti because I do another broadcast on Thursdays, and there's this song that really gets me pumped up. It's called Bugattis in Church, and it's by my friend's son, Natex, based out of Las Vegas. And he's a DJ out there, and he's got this killer song called Bugattis in Church. So buy me a Bugatti if you like. It's not required. Every bit helps. And I got that out of the way. Now the next thing, the Aftermath Foundation. Um, if you happen to be in Scientology or another coercive group, uh, and I say other coercive group, even though the Aftermath Foundation was for Scientology, they essentially have replaced the International Cult Awareness Network. And while they haven't like made the kind of connections that ICANN had yet, they have been making them. And so, even if you're not in Scientology, if you're in some other coercive group, you feel like you can't get out, uh, like Poe on the Go said yesterday, however quietly or however loudly you want to leave, that's what this organization is there for. That's what the money that is donated to the CFC number 43091 is for. It is a 501c3 organization recognized by the IRS. And most of the board members and executives are former Scientologists. So, glad you're here. If you need that, click the top right button, apply for aid. Next thing to pimp or promote is this petition for it doesn't say what it is. This was the one for oh Lord. This was the petition. No. Vacuum leave collection, Fairfax County? No. That's not right. This is supposed to be the one that Maryland started. Shit. Okay, I'll have to find that on another page. All right, this is my Buy Me a Coffee page. Sometime this holiday, the LaFleur brothers are going to play in Lake Charles. And when that happens, I'm going to set up a broadcast. I can't guarantee the audio quality is going to be super great, but just like at the venue, $5 or $3 if you're a member. And then if you need me for any particular reason, I am a man of many talents, and I have a very specific set of skills. You can hire me for whatever, $40 an hour. You know, I do studio work, I do production, I can do broadcast. And these are all the channels that I currently run. And these are the people who have bought me Bugattis, and this is where we interact. I have 2 levels, a bronze level and a gold level. And what else? There's gallery. Oh yeah, today, the hidden impact of domestic violence on children. So, thank you to my supporters on Buy Me a Bugatti. Now, let me put this track on repeat and I'll bring it in and out as we go. Just to give it a little flavor. You got the flavor. You got the flavor. Repeat. Repeat all. Okay. Okay. Just wanted to say that my current reading, I'm currently reading the Serendipity, can't see this shit, Serendipity Mindset by Christian Bush, which I think is kind of funny because I'm immature. And it's pretty damn good, honestly. All right, so the National Child Traumatic Stress Network. So I'm going to read what they have to say on this website and comment. I have a few references pulled up, and I'm going to go through it, and then and then we'll have a basis to discuss something. Um, it was recommended to me by an AI to keep this video under 12 minutes long, but we'll see. Despite the high occurrence of childhood exposure to IPV, which is intimate partner violence, it is important to note that children are inherently resilient and can move forward from stressful events in their lives. One way children heal is by having adults who care about them provide guidance, attention, and support in the aftermath of IPV. Sounds like sexually transmitted disease, but it's actually intimate partner violence. While the number of children exposed to intimate partner violence remains staggering, services are available to those in need as the issue of childhood exposure to intimate partner violence becomes more visible. This is a really good point because women were invisible for a long time. My mother was invisible to the law, to her own family, cultural stuff. Oh, I'm sorry. How did you get that black eye? Or how did this happen? Or what did you... Well, that's between you and your husband. Not all children exposed to intimate partner violence are affected equally or in the same ways. For many children, exposure to intimate partner violence may be traumatic, and their reactions are similar to children's reactions to other traumatic stressors. So now we get into the immediate reactions and long-term effects. So, children's immediate reactions to intimate partner violence, otherwise known as domestic violence, is another way to say it. Children's immediate reactions may include generalized anxiety, sleeplessness. This is as a child. Children with generalized anxiety, sleeplessness, can't go to sleep. I can't go to sleep. Nightmares. When you do sleep, have nightmares. Difficulty concentrating. High activity levels. Increased aggression. Increased anxiety about being separated from a parent. Intense worry about their safety or the safety of their parent. Funny. I mean, I still worry about my mother's safety. Long-term effects, especially from chronic exposure to intimate partner violence, may include physical health problems, behavior problems in adolescence, exempli grati, delinquency, alcohol or substance abuse, emotional difficulties in adulthood, exempli grati, depression, anxiety, PTSD. Exposure to intimate partner violence has also been linked to poor school performance. Children who grow up with why do they say IPV? Why don't they just say domestic violence? Maybe they already have a DV, so they had to come up with IPV, which sounds like an STD. Children who grow up with IPV, intimate partner violence, may have impaired ability to concentrate, difficulty completing schoolwork, and lower scores on measures of verbal, motor, and social skills. Yeah, Amy says all of those symptoms are exactly the type of thing that might set a violent parent off. On them this time. Yes, that's correct. That is so fucking true. In addition to these physical, behavioral, psychological, and cognitive effects, children who've been exposed to IPV, intimate partner violence, or let's just call it what it is, domestic violence. Domestic violence Doesn't have to be the person you are screwing. Intimate. A relationship between a father and a son is intimate. A relationship between a father and daughter is intimate. Um, so, you know, I think they're sort of making it just about the parents, but or maybe that's what IPV is. But domestic violence often learn children who have been exposed to it often learn destructive lessons about the use of violence and power in relationships. Children may learn that it is acceptable to exert control or relieve stress by using violence, or that violence is in some way linked to expressions of intimacy and affection. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Their actions that they do that are violent are linked some way. Not in every case, obviously, but it could be in many cases that it's some way linked to the feelings and expressions of intimacy and affection. In other words, tough love. These lessons can have a powerful negative effect on children in social situations and relationships throughout childhood and later life. As with other trauma types, children's responses to intimate partner violence vary with age and developmental stage. In addition, children's responses depend on the severity of the violence, their proximity to the violent events, and the responses of their caregivers. Mm-hmm. Okay, so uh, let me think about this here, and see what's going on in the chat. Hey, Borderline, how you doing? Good morning, Chad. You bizzle bum crumb bottom feeder floozy. Oh man. Okay. I thought Fizzle Whizzle Bum Crumb, which is some stupid Scientology thing from TRs. Um, Fake, false, fraud, floozy. All right. So, oh yeah, these lessons can have a powerful negative effect on children in social situations and relationships throughout childhood and in later life. So, the tough love thing. Someone who is abusing a child may feel that that. Oh, I thought I had the chat in this one. They may feel feelings of affection, warm fuzzies, by doing this. Like they get warm fuzzies from violence. It's linked somehow to intimacy and affection. So, an example that I can give, that I can talk about, not that I couldn't before. I have agency, but she strongly recommended that I don't speak about it in the trauma community. So, um, here's one thing: tough love. So, I don't even know how old I was. That's how old I was. Swimming in a pool, hanging on my stepfather, who, uh, you know, I would only call. I'm only really calling him that because that's legally he is my stepfather, and he legally obtained custody over me. But upon further examination over time, this guy was actually um, a very malicious guardian of a child who he didn't even want. All right. And I'm sure that he grappled and struggled with that or whatever. But I don't really care because he put a child in danger. Now that in this case that child was me, Had it been any other child, yeah, it would be very, it would be a problem. But things were different, and tough love was more acceptable. And coming from the culture, the Catholic French Creole culture, there are things um, that were just off the table in terms of like when it comes to marriage. Like that's your business, you know. Now, if you are abusing your wife, then God's going to take care of that, and karma's a bitch and stuff like that. But I digress. Um, Learning to swim for my brother and I. My brother Mark learned to swim by being thrown into a creek on, I think, a Boy Scout trip. It was either a Boy Scout trip or a family outing. And hey, Witness says, "Oh, geez, tough love. I remembered that era." Yeah, and also to sort of further articulate the situation that that I grew up in a different time than even my own peers. You know, uh, when I bring my lunchbox to school when I was a kid, I had green beans and like stuff from backyard pasture. We did. Mom didn't buy meat. We butchered our own. Um, and all other kids had like Lunchables and stuff. It's the '80s. It's like prepackaged foods are a thing, but like, I'm growing up on an A1 agricultural plot of land in uh, a rural community 20 miles from the Gulf of Mexico. We're poor, we're living on a farm. And so, and the whole neighborhood was poor. It was just poor, basically, yeah, just poor Creoles, poor whites. But the the thing is that um, I don't want to get into the whole Creole thing, but maybe some other time. Uh, my brother learned to swim by being thrown into a creek. Thrown into a creek. Uh, Ira just picked him up. Sink or swim, boy. Sink or swim, boy. And there was a current there, and and it traumatized him. He still talks about it. This is a guy who's a adrenaline junkie. My brother, he's been a emergency services and firefighter and police officer, sheriff's office, worked in a correctional facility. Always, always, chasing that adrenaline high. And so, but it's interesting that he still gets upset. He's like, "Wow, and Dad threw me in that." It's like when Dad threw me in that creek. I thought I was gonna die. Yeah, well, yeah, probably good chance you might have. Um, so I learned to swim in the Sheridan Hotel in Shreveport, Louisiana. Don't know what year. Don't know how old I was. I do remember hanging on to Ira's shoulder like a monkey, like kids do in the pool. Very safe and comfortable. And he was walking towards the deep end. Now, this is where I got to let you guys know that from here on out, it's all bets off. Some of what I may say will be very disturbing and possibly triggering to everybody. Let me check the chat. Okay, everyone's still here. Um, yep. Suck it up, Buttercup was the phrase that Witness had. Yeah, I've heard that one. Um, uh, and then this. Did you ever get this? Do you know what that is? Does anyone know what this is? Oh, please tell me someone knows what this is. See what I'm doing? That's the world's. Do you know? That's the world's smallest violin. And yeah, sometimes it wouldn't even, no one, Ira wouldn't say anything. My grandmother wouldn't say anything. They'd just be like, that's the world's smallest violin, which basically means, I don't care. I don't care. Y'all got it. Cool. Yeah, so the Sheraton Hotel, sometime in the 80s, there was a big atrium, and we were in the pool. Ira starts walking towards, I'm hanging onto his shoulder, and every step closer he takes to the 8 foot marker in the pool, uh, I'm clutching tighter because I don't know how to swim. Um, I may have been 5, I may have been 6. Um, for all I know, I may have been 4. I actually don't know. It could have been 1985. But we get to the end, and he says, "Trust me, trust me, trust me. It's okay. I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to let you go." And so I start to relax. And when he feels that I'm completely relaxed and comfortable, he grabs me, by the torso, and he's got his back up against the stairs going out of the pool. And he puts his foot on my chest and he kicks me out into the middle of the pool in the 8 foot pool. And I start drowning. And he, sink or swim, boy, come on, paddle, paddle. He didn't say sink or swim. There were people in the hotel, and it was an atrium. And so he was very careful about how he did this because he obviously didn't want to let anyone know or think that he was trying to drown his son. But as witness points out, that what kind of was an era. Like people would just be like, "Oh yeah, he's teaching his boy how to swim." Watch Bill Burr's animated series about the '70s and watch about how that dad acts, and that's about how a milder version. And let's see here. Yeah. Oh shit. You had an out of body experience. I did die and then came back when I was 3 years old, and my sister tried to drown me for the nth time. And yes, I still get shivers down my back when I see someone sneaking up on me from behind. Well, welcome to PTSD land. Welcome. Everybody on SPTV got fucking PTSD. If they were, especially if they were in a coercive group. But everybody got PTSD. Poe on the Go got PTSD. He was a active policeman. Don't tell me he got PTSD. We all have our things. Like I have a hard time going out to the parades because I am hypervigilant. And if I see someone else who's being hypervigilant, I either know that they have PTSD or they're about to do something that they are trying to not get caught doing. And if they see me looking at them and I'm hypervigilant and they're hypervigilant, that creates a situation where they may say, hey, to their buddies who they're doing whatever with, somebody saw me. And we don't like that. Okay, so what he did was he would push me out, and if there was anyone in the atrium, he'd go grab me. But when I wanted to get out of the pool and I would try to swim the other way, he would swim out, grab me, leave me in the pool again, in the middle, and go back to the side. And occasionally he would climb up and I would somehow make it over to I would dog paddle. I was dog paddling. I did not know how to kick my legs or anything like that. And I would get there and catch a breath. But if I was able to do that, it wasn't long before he would come and, get back in the pool, grab me, kick me back into the middle of the pool. Sink or swim, boy, sink or swim. But and he would say that, but if he thought there was anybody around, he'd say, "Come on, boy, paddle," like encouraging, like hey, just trying to teach my son how to swim. Oh, cool, excellent, father. He's young to be learning how to swim. You're a good guy to do that. So, this went on for probably an hour, and then finally I got it. I was able to get out, but I remember being so tired that when I laid on the bed, I was instantly out. Um, and that's an example of tough love, right? And these lessons can have powerful negative effect on children in social situations and relationships throughout childhood and in later life. All right. So let's look at the reactions by the age group. The table below shows a brief list of possible reactions or symptoms by age group. That's terrible, Dawn. Swim class teacher held you underwater till couldn't hold your breath anymore. Yeah, and as witness said, there was a time where this kind of stuff was like, it's fine. Boy, gotta learn how to swim. Um, so, but reactions by age group, birth to 5. All right, this is reactions to intimate partner violence, which could be a sibling, could be a parent. Intimate partner indicates parent, but I am expanding it for purposes of this to include siblings and other parents as well, because my guardian was not my parent, was not my biological parent. But there was definitely intimate partner violence before, during, and after, and continues to this day. Reactions by age group: birth to 5, experiencing intimate partner violence. If you're birth to 5, you may experience sleep and or eating disruptions, withdrawal, lack of responsiveness, intense separation anxiety, inconsolable crying, developmental regression, loss of acquired skills, intense anxiety, worries, and or new fears, increased aggression and or impulsive behavior. Now, I saw this with my daughter during the divorce. The increased aggression and or impulsive behavior. She wasn't necessarily aggressive, but her impulsive behavior happened, and she had anxiety. She had a full anxiety, like panic attack, one time when she came to visit me, and she just wanted to go home, and home for her at that time was at her mother's. So okay, I'm not going to make you stay here and traumatize you further. She felt safer somewhere else, but this was her home where she grew up, and I think a lot of that was like the confusion of like, this is where I used to feel safe, but now I'm made to feel safe over here, and if I'm here, I don't feel safe anymore because now I feel safe over there. Who knows? Ages 6 to 11. Nightmares, sleep disruptions, aggression, and difficulty with peer relationships in school. Now, before I go any further, from going back to the impulsive behavior, anxiety, and worries, and the divorce, I advocated for play therapy in court, and I was laughed at. They granted it, but they were like, she's 3. What good is it going to do? Fine, if you want to pay for it, go for it. Bang the gavel. Well, I am so glad that I did. And that was difficult to go in there and seem like the fool of fools in the court, in the king's court. Being a father accused of all kinds of shit, and then, saying, hey, my daughter needs therapy. And they're like, well, you were, well, the attorney was like, well, he was an ex-Scientologist, so he doesn't care. He doesn't believe in therapy. This is all just a show. Well, touche, um, the divorce, uh, me leaving Scientology preceded the divorce, which means that the divorce was succeeded by, and not by long, me leaving. All right. Difficulty with concentration and task completion in school. Stella wasn't experiencing that. I did. Withdrawal and emotional numbing. School avoidance and or truancy. Now that happens because of adults sometimes. Being late to school, missing school, not bringing your kid to school on time. These are reasons why the school systems tend to really take attendance seriously, because it is a sign of potential abuse in the home. To ages 12 to 18. I see comments here. So glad you advocated for your daughter by Amy. Well, what the hell else am I supposed to do? I can't advocate for myself. I could not defend myself against what they had thrown. It was 27 some odd allegations. They call it the nuclear option. I know that my ex-wife was talking to Dominic, and if I was speaking about Scientology publicly, which I was, then I would have been subject to noisy investigation. I was issued a ComEv. She encouraged me to go. Over time, it's been hard to accept the idea that this was part of noisy investigation, but, afterwards, after the divorce was final, which took 2 years, high conflict divorce, it continued. There was no recovering my career. And the stress of everything had taken its toll. And the career that I reestablished myself in was in the United States Postal Service. But I had just went through cancer treatment and had a surgery, and the recommended recovery was 6 months. But I took the advice of my stepfather at the time, which is just so unbelievable to me. But I went back to work I went to work at the scheduled time instead of asking for medical time to recover. And so I tore my Achilles, and then I was really out of, luck. Because even though I had won custody and rights to see my kids at that point, when I tore my Achilles, I had no income and no way, and I had been spending so much money on all this stuff. I was just skin of my teeth. So that was the final nail in the coffin, if you will. And now we get to the ages now, ages 12 to 18. Antisocial behavior, school failure, impulsive and or reckless behavior. Exempli grati, school truancy, substance abuse, running away, involvement in violent or abusive dating relationships, depression, anxiety, and withdrawal. This reference comes from an old Google search that I did a long time ago, and I'm glad this network developed, because originally my search was false accusations, because I was trying to figure out how to deal with that. And that's this site. Okay, yeah. So Love and Iron. Love and Iron. Join a community, make a difference for parents and children, thrive. Now, I don't know much about Love and Iron, but I years ago searched for what the hell do you do when someone hurls a shit ton of accusations and allegations at you that are very, very, very serious. And the story of parental alienation. This is a tactic that can be used by a partner to alienate their children from from the other parent. Now, Ira did this with my father and I and my mother and her intimate partner. So, introduction. There's a couple sections here. So, introduction. If you're an adult child who has lost a parent because of divorce or family separation, or if you're a parent currently being targeted with what you believe is parental alienation, you should know that despite what you may have been told or been made to feel, that's an important thing, because I was made to feel that my father was a deadbeat, no good, didn't love me, didn't want to be around me kind of guy. Your situation is not, in fact, as rare as others would have you believe. Within the United States alone, researchers estimate there are more than 22 million people being targeted with parental alienation, with at least 10 million of those parents having been completely erased from the lives of their children. So if you're looking for the truth, you've come to the right place. Parental alienation is widely recognized by psychologists and medical professionals as a form of child abuse and domestic violence. It's a well-documented and devastating social disease ravaging through broken families, and one that has profoundly damaging consequences for both parents and children alike. It needs to stop. So, a core question to be addressed with this writing is this: how does one know if a child was abandoned or if the absent parent was alienated and forced out of the child's life by the other parent? That's a fair question, and one that is made more challenging in light of the absolute fact that most alienating parents will gladly lie, blaming the other parent or assigning responsibility to the court. Let's be real. No alienating parent is going to admit to what they've done, so it falls on you, the reader, to determine for yourself what the truth really is. Alienated parent or abandoning parent. Both are examples of extreme cruelty and selfishness, and depending on where you fit in this pathological dynamic, you're likely to feel some measure of disbelief, conflict, or anger. That's normal, and you shouldn't feel the need to rush any decisions. This series of short posts will help you understand better what parental alienation abuse is, who is doing it, how they're doing it, why they're doing it, and lastly, how and why they're able to get away with it. The sadly all too familiar lie is that an absent parent has abandoned their children when in fact they've been purposefully obliterated by the custodial parent. By the time you're done processing what we've got for you here, you'll be able to get a better feel for the truth and decide for yourself what is fact or fiction. This is not difficult to do once you know what to look for, and it's important that you become better informed, because once you understand what parental alienation is, you'll be able to draw your own conclusions about what needs to be done about it. So, you think about that documentary Over the Rainbow and that conversation with Laura and her dad. That's parental alienation. Basically, parental alienation is the psychological manipulation of a child and or the manipulation of the legal system by one parent for the purposes of erasing the parent from the child's life. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andrew D. It is dawn Although Marcus and I don't talk much, I have one of the highest shelves in my brain reserved and held for him. Top shelf, huh? Well, thank you. In short, children are brainwashed and weaponized against the targeted parent for the purposes of erasing the targeted parent from the child's life. Now, my uh, stepfather admitted to this last year, and he said, "The one regret I have is making you hate your father." That's the one regret he has. Okay. Well, this is exactly what happened. I was brainwashed and weaponized against my dad. That's what happened. Okay. So this is all fine and good. This is a form of domestic violence, but, you know, I have lots of that to share. So, um, there is a general consensus amongst psychologists, medical practitioners, and many legal professionals that parental alienation is a distinctive form of psychological abuse and family violence towards both the child and the targeted family members. It's like my whole LaFleur side of the family was affected by Travis's adoption and me being alienated from them, and then them learning later that I was abused. Um, Furthermore, the behavior occurs almost exclusively in association with family separation or divorce, particularly where legal action is involved. Well, you know, Ira had a very, very good attorney, and it was very legal, and he attacked not only my mother, but my father, and anyone who dared get in between. Uh, Most common cause. He's very much like a Scientologist, except he's not. It's like he was just born a Scientologist. Like he fair games people. If there's no dirt, he'll find dirt. He'll manufacture it if you can't find it. So the most common cause is one parent wishing to exclude the other parent from the life of their child through family members or friends, as well as professionals involved with the family, including psychologists, lawyers, and judges, and may contribute to the process. Those may contribute to the process. In my case, they did. His attorney, the judge presiding over the case, and there was not consensus with my psychologist, but there was what would you call it? Uh, an agreement. Like if they sent me away from him for long enough for me to get some kind of normal, get some kind of baseline, they sent me to a camp. And that was sort of part of the agreement. Ira hated that because he had to pay for it, but and the psychologist recommended it. He also hates psychology and psychologists very much as Scientology does. So he really had that in common with Scientology. He loved that. The most common, oh yeah, parental alienation abuse is a gender neutral problem. Both men and women are increasingly using the tactic to inflict maximum, can't emphasize that enough, injury on the other parent and causing severe harm to the children in the process. When I say maximum, you know, this stuff could have killed me with the stress, and then my children wouldn't have a dad. So that's pretty much max as it gets. Degrees of parental alienation. Divorce is a difficult time for any family, and there's underlying conflict motivating the split in the first place. There's the enormous stress that such a large change imposes on parents and children alike. And there's the accompanying anger that's often encouraged by family court industry agents who profit from provoking additional conflict between parents. Now, my ex wife says that she didn't know about all the allegations, and that may or may not be true. But the fact remains is that the more conflict, the better it was for her attorney and mine, because they got well, she was represented by the state, so her attorney was getting money from the state. But my attorney was siphoning every asset that I had through my stepfather. Um, and so, okay. Most children can deal with a bit of bad mouthing between their parents, and the fact is that they've probably already been exposed to it long before the family separation takes place. However, child abuse and family violence begins when one weaponizes the children against the other parent and engages in a deliberate, systematic effort to erase that parent from their lives. Personal experience, Ira would bribe me with things. He bought a house. He let me pick out a house. He bought me a Gibson Les Paul. He would give me money when I would go to my mom, so I had money. Um, and, you know, those were bribes. Um, and and it was weaponizing because he'd be like, well, your mom can't do this, your mom can't do this, your dad can't do this. And as a child, I was that made sense to me, like, yeah, I'm better off with you. um so mild parental alienation, the alienator parent seeks to strengthen his or her position through subtle programming and manipulation of the child's reality. Moderate parental alienation, in the moderate category, aren't as fantastical as those in the severe category, but rage is nonetheless an important factor. Consistently, the moderate alienator can wage an intense campaign of deprecation in an attempt to alienate the children from the other spouse. The moderate alienator will often be creative in obstructing visitation, but will usually comply when faced with a fine or possible change in custody. Okay. Severe parental alienation. They spelled it wrong. Severe alienators are commonly obsessed with hatred for the other parent. False accusations of sexual abuse often arise in severe alienation scenarios. What the fuck was I dealing with whenever I uh, reported my children missing, and then I get something back from her attorney stating as such that I have sexually assaulted my children and her, and physically assaulted my children and her, and many, many more allegations of unemployment, bad father, drug abuser, drug addicted, on and on, etc. Uh, and the severe alienator will exaggerate and twist almost anything a child says in order to support such allegations. Severe alienators exhibit the hallmark of paranoid thinking in that they don't respond to reason, logic, or the obvious. All right? So those are the degrees. Parental alienation strategies. Okay. They say the N word here, narcissist in a nutshell. You will go from being perfect, the perfect love of their life, to nothing you do is ever good enough. You will give everything and they will take it all, giving less and less in return. You will end up depleted emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and probably financially, and then get blamed for it. Um, you know, there's narcissistic personality disorder, and then every one of us is narcissistic. Every single one of us. You can't convince me that we're not, because self-interest. Now, there is a difference between narcissistic disorders and simply having narcissistic traits. Um, and misnomering someone as a narcissist is a huge disservice, because everyone has narcissism. Parental alienation strategy. I just wanted to point that out because to me that's the N word. Um, Parental alienation strategies. There are two primary strategies typically used in conjunction with each other that alienators employ to punish and erase the other parent. Employ, interesting choice of words because my stepfather actually did employ people. Uh, One of them was my biological father's current wife, who they were having an affair, and he would tell her to tell him things that would disturb him psychologically, um, and do little things like withdrawals from bank accounts and deposits into others. Um, So the first strategy involves manipulation of the legal system. We'll get to this later. The second involves the direct psychological manipulation of the child. Psychological research reveals that narcissistic personality traits are prone to dominate the alienating parent's behavior because these personalities are generally incapable of separating their own needs from those of their children, and are quite comfortable with using and exploiting them to achieve their goals. Narcissists are incapable of empathy towards others, including their own kids, and are largely unconcerned with the welfare of anyone but themselves. Side note, during the 2-year high conflict divorce, um, my children's mother lived in a safe house provided by the state, by registered uh, by a woman who connected a garage to her house, because the requirement is that the roof has to be touching and connected to the house in order for it to be considered a safe house, because that insinuates that there is access to the amenities of the home. But the inspector never looked inside. It was concrete floors. There was no running water. There was no bathroom. There was no heat, central heat, or AC. And that my 1 and 3-year-old child lived in this for 2 years. If that doesn't say I don't give a shit about the welfare of my children, I don't know what does. They don't have genuine relationships because to them, people tend to be objects to be manipulated for their own ends. With a narcissist, there is no real love, no genuine caring for others. They give only if it gets them more in return. And once a person ceases to be useful, they'll usually be discarded. Narcissists aren't difficult to spot once you know the personality markers. Now, most narcissists, true narcissists, will not be diagnosed because they're just like truly so narcissist they would not even allow it. So that's why I say, on a technical level, not a, like, I don't believe that when someone says, oh my God, they're narcissistic, here's why, and they have plenty of proof. Sure, they are very narcissistic, but do they have the disorder? You never know unless they get diagnosed, and they won't. So narcissists aren't difficult to spot once you know the personality markers. Highly controlling. Consistently insist you prioritize their needs above others. I need to get this done. I need this done before you do anything. Before you do anything, I need you to do this. Regular employ emotional threats and punishments to get what they want. You're going to regret that. If you do that, you're going to regret it. Vague sometimes. Sometimes not vague. I'll whoop your ass if you do that. I will kill you. I will kill you. if you do this, X, Y, Z. Are unable to see a perspective other than their own. Uh, Also could be considered mind blindness, unaware of any perspective other than theirs. Become enraged when their manipulations are disrupted or when they're criticized, also commonly known as narcissistic rage. Whenever you decide to buck their little system, they'll throw a temper tantrum. And who knows what'll happen. Absent empathy towards others, especially where their own behavior is concerned. Don't care, right? Tiniest violin in the world. Possess an exaggerated an exaggerated sense of self-importance. You know, Ira told me he wanted to run for president. Said that he could win. Okay, sure, buddy. Commonly portray themselves as both the victim and the hero. Yeah. This is true of a lot of cult leaders and a lot of domestic abusers. Oh, well, you know, I'm just the bad guy. I'll always be the bad guy. But whenever they are able to reel you in somehow, or you are sort of forced in, sort of like I describe it as a whirlpool, then they can be a hero. This kind of behavior may be an existing dominant feature of the alienator, which is part of the narcissistic personality disorder, which has multiple references and criteria that you must meet to actually be diagnosed as narcissistic with a disorder of the personality, because narcissism is inherent in every human being. So congratulations, everyone here. You're narcissists. You have narcissism. You're not what I'm describing. You are not what I'm describing. You couldn't possibly be here listening to this if you are what I'm describing. But you do have narcissism. I encourage you all to look at that. Because it has trended so hard in media. Narcissism. Okay, yes, that behavior was narcissistic. Are they a habitual, malignant narcissist? Because those are the ones that are usually criminals. Those are the ones that are threatening people's lives. Those are the ones that are hurting children. Those are the ones that are hurting families. Those are the ones that are separating families, alienating people, secluding people, physically abusing people, trying to murder people. Beach. I know how wonderful I am. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Embrace that, because you are not malignant. You know, it's like cancer. It's like, okay, I had cancer. It's gone. Being aware of it, it's a check. You know, self-awareness. It's a self-awareness check. Okay, so this kind of behavior may be existing dominant feature of alienator narcissistic personality disorder, but it can also be the case that the pathological nature of the family court environment encourages and rewards it when the behavior might otherwise be more subdued. So if your abuser, like say for instance, Ira in my case, can show up in court and look professional and subdue his rage, his narcissistic rage, his temper tantrums, and provide a whole bunch of evidence and manufacture dirt, and have enough money, then they can win. Same case with Scientology. They bullied the court system for years. They take advantage of it. The truth is parental alienation is a form of narcissistic abuse, which doesn't mean that you have narcissistic personality disorder. You can be narcissistic and be abusing people without having the disorder. Point of fact. The truth is parental alienation is a form of narcissistic abuse toward both children and the targeted parent. Psychologist and clinical researcher Amy Baker, PhD, summarizes the narcissistic process of parental alienation, and this is a narcissistic process because it's not necessarily a narcissist you're dealing with. You're dealing with narcissistic abuse and narcissistic processes. And these can happen in people who aren't prone to become full-blown malignant for the rest of their life narcissists. Witness says, narc behavior, then narc characteristic, then narc disorders. It's a spectrum. Booyah! You got it. You got it. Amen. Hallelujah. Holy shit. It is. And to throw the horrible label of NPD around, because that's what a lot of the trends have associated with, like NPD. They're a narcissist. They're undiagnosed NPD. Holy shit, man. Do you realize what kind of sentence that is socially to somebody to say that? I'm paranoid that I have NPD because I was raised by somebody who probably is undiagnosed NPD. So I won't say that he has NPD. I'm not defending him by saying that either. But there was narcissistic abuse and narcissistic behavior. Lots of it. All right. Amy Baker summarizes the process of parental alienation as a 3-part message to children. Number 1, I am the only parent who loves you, and you need me to feel good about yourself. Check. 2, the other parent is dangerous and unavailable. 3, pursuing a relationship with the other parent jeopardizes your relationship with me. Those 3 points were very, very, very clear as soon as I became aware of the existence of my father. She further notes, there are 17 primary and clinically validated parental alienation strategies employed by toxic parents that fall into 5 broad categories. Number 1, poisonous messages to the child about the targeted parent in which he or she is portrayed as unloving, unsafe, and unavailable. Well, just a personal example, he's a drunk. He was never around before. He is a coward. Things like that. Number 2, limiting contact and communication between the child and the targeted parent. Now, this was done through the legal system where I was, in normal circumstances, I would have been able to contact my biological father after the divorce at my own discretion. But in the sealed records, I would find the answer. But I know the answer because I was only allowed 1 hour per week on the phone with my biological father. 1 hour per week. 3, erasing and replacing the targeted parent in the heart and mind of the child. Now that's a whole story because it starts from the very, very, very beginning. How he earned my trust, blah, da, 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 da. But this is applicable to anybody. 4, encouraging the child. Everyone's going to have a different story is what I mean. 4, encouraging the child to betray the targeted parent's trust. Well, not only did he encourage me to, but when I got into Scientology and Scientology found out that my father was smart enough in 2003 and 2004 to resource material about the church through ICANN and found out that they were indeed a coercive group, a coercive control group, he began the process of intervention with the help of ICANN. And it was uh, actually creating cognitive dissonance in my little reality distortion field, like Bitch Brisker says. So when that happened, a search and discovery from the ethics officer in the church uh, began, and they made it seem like it was just some unknown person, when in reality they knew exactly who it was. It was my biological father, who was asking me, "Why aren't y'all playing music out there? I thought y'all were supposed to be out there playing music." And I didn't have a good answer for that. And later, when I would hang up the phone and be doing book sales or call in, it would pop into my head. And so that's how you get the seed. That's, you plant these little seeds into people's minds to help them wake up. That's exactly what he did. But they encouraged me to betray his trust as much as my stepfather did. So I had a double dose. That's why I did my video called Double Disconnection, because not only was my stepfather alienating me from my father, but also the Church of Scientology alienated me and my brother from our father. Precious years lost. Not many that he had left either. And I assume and presume that the stress of that contributed largely to his early death. Number 5, undermining the authority of the targeted parent. Well, in my mind, Dwayne had no authority. He was a disabled, crippled. Okay, in Ira's terminology, he had something that was the same as what Scientology would call a DB, someone who you don't want to associate with because they're not capable or able to do anything. They'll never make any progress. And Ira has his own version of that, which is basically crippled. So anyone who's crippled can't make any progress, so therefore they're useless. That would undermine the authority. Wholesale deceit is a fundamental part of the alienator's arsenal. I'm sorry, I'm just blowing through this. This is a lot of stuff we're going through, and I have been glancing at the chat. But I hope this is going well. All these strategies aside, perhaps the most destructive tactics are what is left unsaid, what is deliberately misrepresented, and what is blatantly manufactured. As I said earlier, can't find no dirt, create it, manufacture it. Children are told the alienated parent is willingly absent, under investigation, etc. No mention is made of the endless flood of motions requesting denied visitation, how the court finds on false accusations, all the phone calls neglected, messages deleted, gifts relabeled, the custody orders ignored, or that the targeted parent simply became incapable of continuing fighting because their finances have become exhausted. The alienating parent manipulates everything the child sees and controls what information they get, so the child comes to believe and feel things that are not true about the alienator, the targeted parent, and sadly about themselves. This is my situation. This is my situation. This is my situation. No adherence to any of the legal the legal judgments and orders put in place. Phone calls neglected, messages deleted. I make sure the gifts aren't relabeled. I have some control over that through my mother. Custody orders ignored completely. and incapable of fighting because finances have become exhausted, which is why I'm here on MF YouTube broadcasting on 5 different channels all the time and in therapy. That's really why I'm here. So, you know, live long and prosper. So that's that section. The story of parental alienation. Or was that strategies? Strategies, right. All right, so we're halfway through. Um, hey, not bad. Children, all right, effects of parental alienation abuse on children. Children suffering parental alienation display symptoms of abuse because, as you now know, they are in fact being abused by the alienating parent. The abuse imposes long term damage on the psychological health of children that often solidifies and extends well into adulthood. A wide body of research has established that children suffering from parental alienation and who become alienated from a parent suffer long term damaging effects that can include, but are not limited to, a greater likelihood to experience problems with self esteem and self confidence, more difficulties with social adjustment, a greater likelihood of teen pregnancy, a greater likelihood to abuse drugs and alcohol. I mean, I was 12 when I dropped my first blotter, and I was younger than that when I smoked weed first time. I wanted an escape. I wanted to feel different. I did have problems with social adjustment. I was friends with everybody, and that was a problem. Um, oh yeah, self-esteem and self-confidence. I always misinterpreted people's body language reads. I learned fairly recently that a lot of the reactions that I thought were hostile towards me, people did like I thought people didn't like me, was actually they were too afraid to interact with me because they thought I was cool. So I didn't know that. Overrepresentation in a range of mental health issues, especially anxiety, depression, and suicide. So this group of people, childhood experience, people who've experienced childhood alienation are overrepresented, meaning there's a lot of anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts. Um, it wasn't my grandfather, Brian. It was actually my stepfather. Um, and then self-hating behaviors, symptoms of prenatal symptoms of parental alienation, campaign of denigration of the targeted parent. Denigrate. How can you make something less valuable? Denigrate is a special word because it's more than just make someone look bad. It is reduce them to nothing. Weak, frivolous, or absurd reasons for the rejection of the targeted parent. Um, he's fat. That fat fuck. Uh, that's just a quick example. Lack of ambivalence towards both parents, in which one is viewed as all good and the other as all bad. Yeah, there was no, like, mom and Dwayne were just terrible people, is what I was told. Lack of remorse for the poor treatment of the targeted parent. And I would add to this encouragement of poor treatment of the targeted parent. Number 5, reflexive support for the favored parent. Um, I'm actually not sure what that means. Number 6, use of borrowed scenarios. I also don't know what that is. That's probably a whole other thing. And this is to the independent thinker phenomenon. Number 8, spread of animosity towards the friends and family of the target parent. Now, this is something that Ira did, and this is something that I did as a Scientologist. on my own. On my own, with the help of, L. Ron Hubbard and all that stuff. So, tragically, these children grow up believing that the way they've been treated by the alienating parent is normal for relationships. My relationship with my stepfather was normal. It was the only normal relationship I had. And as a result, have a greater likelihood of partnering with exactly same kind of abusive personality down the road and becoming parental alienation victims themselves. Well, that kind of sounds, if I was reading a book, that kind of sounds like that's what happened to me. But I'm not going to say conclusively that Ira Lee Sawyer or my ex-wife are diagnosed with. I only say what they've been diagnosed with. Ira's been diagnosed with general dementia. Now, that was recent. And my ex-wife was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is now reclassified in the DSM-5 as ASD, otherwise known as Autism Spectrum Disorder. All right, why is it a disorder? Well, I actually don't think it is if you're getting help with it. Autism actually runs in my family on the LaFleur side, and my nephews have had resources and developmental resources that have helped them throughout their life, and they are doing fine. But if you are not, hey Laura, I've been meaning to send you an email. Excuse me. You came in right as I was taking a bong rip. So, what the hell was I saying? Yeah, the becoming a victim yourself after having been a victim for years. You get alienated from your parent, and then you get alienated from your kids. And yeah. It's worth noting that many family law attorneys won't represent an alienating parent. And that was the case with my ex-wife. She had to get a public defender. Still, because we had a amicable separation agreement, still the narcissistic abuser will keep looking, going through 2, 3, 4 more attorneys until they land on a lawyer who, for the right price, is more than willing to rigorously defend what they're doing. That was my stepfather, and his attorney was James Hopkins. And he won a case against the state, a custody case that had to be determined by the state because it was a case for custody of a child who was not his biological son, winning the custody from the biological father and the biological mother with bribes, money, backroom deals, personal connections to judges, family connections, and even participation and witness statements from the family themselves against my mother and my father. So it is, So for the right price, right? Added to that, you'll have family investigators, supervised parenting providers, court-ordered child therapists. In my case, I was jumping and beating them to the punch on that. They actually were like, "Why do you want therapy? We weren't even there yet." And it's like, no, they need to be in therapy. I mean, my daughter did. My son was 1 year old. And they were like, "But she's 3. I'm like, "Yeah, but she just went through this horrific trauma." So, like, I don't think will the court deny uh, play therapy to my daughter who just experienced trauma? Because if that's the case, then go ahead and make that call. I don't think you want to make that call. The list goes on, and all of them are making boatloads of money because of the presence of parental alienation. Additionally, and disturbingly, politicians don't seem particularly motivated to address this kind of child abuse, presumably because their cares are focused on political appeal of maximizing child support orders for custodial parents and keeping their family court industry donors happy. Don't believe the hype. The family court orders are centered around the best interests of children. You know, I give pause to that because this seems like an extremist statement, but I can vouch for it. So there you go. Because because that's a load of nonsense. A shameless con intended to hide the truth about the money-centered collusion and exploitation of parents and children that's going on within the family court environment. So I'm glad I stopped and before I even read that, because I didn't pre-read this. I found the resource and linked it for this morning's broadcast. But yeah, that sounds like a pretty inflammatory and extreme statement, but I can vouch for it, unfortunately. Parental alienation abuse and the damage it causes to children is essentially tolerated because confronting it would be inconvenient to an entire collection of self-interested parties who are profiting off an adversarial family court environment. I mean, to make it a little less heavy, I'll give an example from the standpoint of a game, like a Monopoly or a video game or something where you're competing for something. If you don't have people wanting something, it's like supply and demand. You know, the in the legal field, in domestic law, domestic attorneys, the pieces of the game are this parent and this parent, and these children and this children. And if you don't have conflict, you can't. If it just resolves and then it's gone, well, then you're not making much money. So that's how I would describe that. Parental alienation abuse then boils down to a story in which children are forced to pay a long-term price for the greed of the alienating parent and a whole host of others. Family law is about the harvesting of money, period. And the health and well-being of children has nothing to do with any of it. Again, this sounds extreme, but again, I can vouch. Like my children were for 2 years, no bathroom, no toilet, no AC, no heat in Louisiana, concrete floors, no kitchen. I mean, they were peeing in buckets for 2 years. My 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. And it affected my daughter in addition, obviously, to the trauma of being taken from the home in the middle of the night and not being told where daddy was for a little over a week. She took on motherly duties of her 1-year-old brother. She became mommy because mommy was not interested in much other than, like, if you go back and read this page, which I should probably link this. This is a post from Love and Iron. This whole mini story here. The nuclear weapon. See, I knew it was well known. We're almost to the nuclear impact, the nuclear option. Family, yep, all right. Oh, so we finished with that. Yeah. Has nothing to do with any. If it did, we'd have family law that incentivized cooperation between parents instead of conflict. Now, they do have a system in place that feigns like that's what they do, but again, it's all about money. They really don't care about what's going on. Uh, you have to go outside of the system to find that, and usually, the court has appointed people. Um, Insured children have meaningful relationship with both parents and treated parental alienation abuse with the seriousness it deserves. All right. Now, the nuclear weapon, which I was told the nuclear option when I talked to my attorney friend who works in the music sector of law. She was like, "Did she do the nuclear option?" And I was like, "That's a thing." And she's like, "Oh, yeah." The growing problem of false allegations of abuse. Is it true that family court proceedings do uncover instances of systematic physical or sexual abuse against children? And for that, we can all be thankful. However, studies also show that around 75% of abuse allegations made during high conflict custody cases disputes turn out to be fabricated or unfounded. I can vouch for that. Happened to my mom, happened to my brother Mark, happened to me. In fact, false allegations of sexual abuse against children made in custody disputes have become such a problem that it has been given its own name: sexual abuse in divorce, SAID. A common response to the presence of false allegations by folks at large is no one would make something like that up and lie to a judge about it. A common misconception for sure, but a misconception nonetheless, and one that is easily exploited by alienating parents for the purposes of nuclear warfare against the person they are targeting. Here's how it works. First, and in the U.S. at least, the law provides a safe harbor for false accusers, providing they make the allegations in the correct way. More specifically, no actual evidence of the abuse is required. The accuser need only claim to have, quote, fear that the abuse has taken place or will take place in the future, and that is all that is required to trigger a response from the court. Edo est, state evaluator, mandatory evaluation, multiple mandatory evaluations. Orders of restraint and supervised parenting will immediately be issued against the accused parent. Happened to me. The court will usually order the appointment of an investigator to be paid by for me, which in the best circumstances will be an experienced forensic psychologist. Well, in the best of circumstances. But that's not required, and too often individuals not competent to be objective or qualified to root out the truth are appointed. John Semino, Dr. John Semino, PhD, Shreveport, Louisiana. I'm sorry, not Shreveport, Pineville, Louisiana. John Semino did my evaluation and was summoned to court, but did not make it and sent his evaluation via fax. Also, don't expect a quick resolution to the allegations. Nothing moves quickly in civil court, and under these circumstances, it is normal for the investigation alone to take close to a year or more. 2 years for me. And even once that's done, the alienator will be given the opportunity to hire a different expert to perform another investigation and rebut the findings of the first one. That hasn't happened, but I have been sued for arrears. If you've taken a moment to digest the expert's testimony linked throughout this article, you will have developed the understanding that alienated parents are masters of manipulation and the family court is perfect environment to exact a devastating, scorched earth revenge against a parent who triggers their rage. It says narcissistic rage, but bullet point: allegations can be manufactured with no evidence when without any fear of repercussions. Lawmakers and judges rightly want the legitimate victims of abuse to feel safe coming forward. In my case, the judge residing over our case was Judge Linkage, District 14, Calcasieu Parish. Thus, if properly guided on the correct way to bring allegations, hire lawyers and social workers, laws intended to protect legitimate victims can easily be weaponized by false accusers to inflict holistic long-term damage on both the other parent and the relationship they have with their children, and in my case, the relationship they have with their grandparents, who are their only grandparents that see them. Bullet point: the allegations can take years to resolve. Aside from the normal process of investigating the allegations, there are an infinite number of ways the accuser can sabotage and delay the process for years. Motions are filed, allegations are made against supervised parenting personnel and therapists. Attorneys either fire the accuser or the accuser fires the attorney. Beyond all that, and in the meantime, there are a limitless number of ways the accuser can sabotage and delay the process for years. Motions are filed, allegations are made against supervised parenting personnel and therapists. Attorneys either fire the accuser or the accuser fires the attorney. The list goes on, and all the while, the falsely accused must remain in supervised parenting, which sends their children the implicit message that they are dangerous. Needless to say, the limited amount of time spent with children along the ongoing representation of the accused parent as a threat plays right into the alienator's agenda, causing serious harm to both the accused parent, the involved children, and their relationship. The process is incredibly expensive. Dawn, I'm sorry you had to went through all this bullshit. It's okay. I'm alive. I'm alive, and I can talk about it, apparently. My therapist is like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, it's time. Talk about it. And I haven't even gotten into the, my own alienation issues. I'm kind of wading in the waters of my alienation from my own children and the alienation that I had from my father. And my mother is, too. So the process is incredibly expensive. Investigator fees, supervised parenting fees, therapy fees, attorney fees, child support, alimony, travel expenses. Costs are crushing. That's why I was homeless. Gee, I wonder why. I worked 3 jobs, man, during this hell divorce. And made a lot of money, but it was all gone. And when I got injured at the post office, that was it. I couldn't even work no more. And therein lied a problem with Ira, because then I became a cripple, which is like a DB in Scientology. So I was being treated very hostily. And there's some physical violence history there. So they've got you over a barrel and they know it. Challenge them or invoice the quality of their work and they'll simply withdraw from the case. Send you an invoice for remainders and have the judge order a garnishment or a lien on your assets if you refuse or are unable to pay. Additionally, not paying child support or alimony is not an option for the accused. Don't pay that stuff, and they may end up in jail for contempt of court, which is what she sued me for last year. She's trying to get me put in jail. It seems that in the eyes of the family court judges, child support and alimony trump the need and ability of the accused to defend their innocence. Thus, a common ploy of alienating parents is to stimulate additional billable hours by drowning investigators and lawyers with additional baseless allegations, useless information, and more work. And all too often, practitioners are more than willing to comply with these fraudulent demands and bill their retainer accounts for them. Now, this happened to me. My attorney sent me a bill for $4,000. I'm like, no, I've already paid you, bro. Like, and I had paid him all off. It was like the last payment. Um, in fact, I was so damn broke. One of my buddies from gaming, who is pretty well off, was like, "Seriously? Like, you owe that much?" He's like, "Wrote a check, sent it. I had a benefactor." It was, I was about to lose everything. He was like helping me out. So, there will be no finding of innocence to the allegations. That's true. You will never be innocent. In civil family court, failure to show that the accused parent is guilty of the allegations will result in a judicial finding that the allegations are unfounded. On occasion, a judge may say they can't or won't rule out the allegations were manufactured, but they are unlikely to assert with certainty that they were. The only way a falsely accused parent can claim an innocence finding is if the matter becomes criminal and he or she is found innocent by a jury. Of course, this works just fine for the false accuser, as they spend a lifetime misrepresenting the findings to their children and others with the purpose of obliterating the reputation of the falsely accused. Obliterate the reputation. Obliterate. This is the nuclear option. The end is just the beginning. Damn true. One might expect that after years of investigation and litigation, and after judicial finding that any allegations of abuse are unfounded or perhaps manufactured, that would be the end of it. One might even expect that given such fraudulent, abusive, and alienating behavior, the judge would assign custody to the accused parent, right? No. That rarely, if ever, happens. Instead, family court judges are likely to adopt the family investigator's recommendation of a, quote, reunification process. Oh, fuck me. This actually fucking happened too. So, like, they're like, after all that shit, her attorney is like, well, we need to do a reunion. We need to try to work it out. Are you fucking kidding me? After you just try to destroy me? No. And my attorney's like, you have to. So I go and sit in this stupid office with this stupid business that says they're psychologists, some kind of psychologists, marriage counselors. They're there because of the court system. These people that don't care. They're not interested. They're just there for their 4 sessions that they get paid for, that I pay for. And they could give 2 shits about reunification. So it's called parental coordinator or facilitator. All right? We saw a facilitator. More therapy, no unsupervised custody, and more court hearings along the way. I would say no unsupervised visitation, because I do get unsupervised visitation. I can see my kids whenever I want. However, the precedent and the pattern has been set since the beginning of this, because you lose all of those rights immediately, because you are immediately investigated over and over again, and whatever, that it becomes a way of life. The kids get used to it. The grandparents get used to it. Of course, the accuser gets used to it. It's exactly what they want. I've never gotten used to it. Yes, you read that correctly. It is the alienated parent who has to jump through all the hoops. Yeah. Permanent orders are not the end of the matter. They're just the beginning. And there will, without a single doubt, be more allegations down the road as the reunification process comes to an end and the alienating parent is confronted with the reality that unsupervised custody is incoming. Yeah, that she hated. She would not even... She had all of these things written down, I will pull into the driveway. You will stay at the door until I get out of the car, open the door. The kids come out. They wait at the front of the steps. Then you go, and then I get in my car. And then as soon as I'm out of the driveway, you can go get the kids. Okay, whatever. Um, so the generic pattern leading to false allegations of abuse. The generic pattern. Allegations of sexual abuse surface after separation or divorce action is initiated. Check. There is a history of family dysfunction and unresolved conflict. Check. The accuser displays tendency of hysteria, borderline anger, defensiveness, hatredness, rationalizing. Well, considering that she married a Scientologist, and she was happy with that until I decided to leave Scientology, I'll say check. The accused is generally passive, nurturing, and lacks an assertive personality. Or the accused is generally passive, nurturing, and lacks an assertive personality characteristic. I don't think I would qualify as passive. Maybe nurturing. First 3 years with my daughter were incredible. Um, and I don't lack an assertive personality characteristic. I'm on fucking YouTube right now talking about this shit. So, 5, the child is typically female under the age of 8. Well, that was not my case, but is the case with my daughter. The allegations are raised by the custodial parent. We were both custodians. The accuser may shop for a therapist or social worker or support the abuse allegation. That happened through back channels, not official ones. Like she would go to support websites like Wrong Planet and basically the internet, which is not always the best place to go to sort of get life advice, but whatever. The court reacts by terminating or limiting visitation. John Mast has a long story. I'm not going to read. It's brutal. So that's a lot. Man, that's a lot. There's still. I wanted to get to the nuclear option. And I wanted to touch back on the effects of child abuse, domestic violence. They call it intimate partner violence, which includes physical violence and emotional violence. So, I had some memories come up in this last week from, I assume, the EMDR stuff that I've been doing, because I was told that would happen as a result of the processing, the bilateral, the eye movement desensitization reprocessing treatment that I'm getting, which is a bilateral stimulation of the brain. And indeed, it did happen. I got all these memories that came up with detail, whereas prior I had memories of my childhood. They were kind of strung together. They seemed a little flimsy. Indeed, they were, because once these other memories started coming up, those good memories that I had were very in number, very small compared to the other ones that were coming up. It's like a volcano. So, my guardian was a violent accuser, and did, it was what do they say, IPV now, intimate partner violence. So, while she was pregnant for my brother Travis, there was regular violence, sexual violence, uh, attempted abortions by means of infection. I'll spare you the details. That happened on a regular basis throughout the entire pregnancy. She was struck in the stomach uh, during the 9th month of her pregnancy. And that was right after she left my biological grandparents' house, where he agreed to meet my biological father um, and be cordial and be civil. He assaulted my father, kicked him in the nuts, grabbed my mother by the hair, dragged her out like a caveman. Got on the main road to get on the highway, punched her in the stomach 9 months pregnant. There was an 18-wheeler that pulled out in front of him. Ira got out of the car and walked over there and said something to him. Mom doesn't remember. She couldn't hear, but she always wanted to know what he said. She didn't move because he punched her hard, and she felt like she had this instinct that if she moved at all, she would lose the baby. So she just stood real still. And after that experience, and him continuing to threaten to murder the child, in direct ways or indirect ways, my mother talked to one of these doctors. They called them adoption doctors, and they were connected with families throughout, their practice area. And there was a family in need of who was not able to have a child, and so they placed a child. They placed my brother into a home that they knew was going to be good for the child. When I came along, it was different. My mother left. She didn't want to go through that torment again. However, she went through a different kind of torment because she got to see me. Well, she didn't know a lot of this because I didn't know a lot of this. But for the first, say 1981 to 1987, there were multiple incidents of Ira trying to accident me. He had a friend who was in Vietnam who was very, very traumatized and an unstable person. His name was Glenn Vincent. He lived in Bayou Den, Louisiana, which means the end. Bayou, the end. He lived in a shot-up shack house, and he had loaded weapons and hand grenades and all of his gear, like just gear, army gear, in the house. I was introduced to him when I was very young. I don't know how old. But Ira would leave me with him. And I do remember, here's one of the things I do remember. Here's the things that have surfaced. I do remember them talking about how much I look like a gook. Because Glenn said, "Oh, you brought a gook baby over?" And I know that term is offensive, but I'm saying it anyway because that is what was said. This is contextual. Ira is a racist. So they talked about, Ira would ask him about Vietnam in a way that was encouraging to me, like, how many gooks did you kill? How many villages did you burn down? And that's when Glenn would get quiet. I remember that. I also remember being at Glenn's house alone and him pacing up and down the hallway, up and down the hallway. Now, the walls had holes from bullets where he had shot. He thought there were VC coming to get him. That's how unstable this man was. But he was as gentle with me as you could possibly be. But he recognized that there was this thing in him that saw, he, not me, but the enemy. And he was pacing back and forth. Probably his bedroom is where he was pacing back and forth to, and that's probably where his firearms were. And Ira would drop me off sometimes and pick me up. And this was the initial thing that I remembered coming up. This was what initially, I guess, unlocked the other details of that memory. Was I remember going to the door and Glenn kind of like not dragging me hard, but just like getting me to the door. He heard Ira's truck come into the driveway, and he was so tense that he was crying. He wasn't crying like upset crying. He was just like in panic mode, and he was leaking. And he said, "Please don't ever do this to me again." And he kind of pushed me out the door gently. And that's something that was suppressed. So that what I'm saying is that this whole EMDR thing, so far, in my experience, has brought up some things. I had a real big moment in that session in where I realized that his desire to kill anything related to Dwayne LaFleur didn't stop whenever Travis was adopted. He was trying to accident me, so it wouldn't be his fault. He would be the clear prime suspect. The drowning stuff. Later, he would pretend to throw me in a snake pit, to which the patrons of that establishment were like, "What the hell did you just do? Why did you pick that kid up and hang him over the snake pit?" Pit full of rattlesnakes. Another time we go hunting for rattlesnakes. It's right after they've been breeding in Texas. And it was 8-foot high, tall grass, dry grass. And there was a big rocky mesa to the right of us. And we were going through a field that was about a mile. And he was like, "Well, you need to go first because you need to learn how to be brave." So I took the barrel of the shotgun and I would fold over the grass, and so slow. It took us so long. It was like 5 o'clock when we left, and the sun was down by the time we made it halfway to the fence. But the creepy thing about remembering this was I don't remember I remember hearing snakes everywhere, but I couldn't tell you if there was 1, 10, or 100 of them. And because it was all I could see was a straight line forward and backward, anything in my peripheral, or if I looked like the dry reeds, natural camouflage for a rattlesnake. I may have been seeing rattlesnakes. Yeah. So, but when we turned around, I got back in front to lead the way back because I needed to learn how to be brave. I mean, these are a couple of instances of him trying to accident me, and then there's the penultimate where he actually, strangulated me. Luckily, my brother Mark was there, and my mother screamed bloody murder, and Mark made quick, brutal, and efficient work out of him. But as I said, all this stuff, the domestic crap still goes on to this day to some degree. It's not as physical as it used to be. He's an older man. And after 53 years, my mother has left, which is amazing. And she is much happier. So, child stuff. I'm going to read some comments quickly. It said 20 minutes. Make a 20-minute video about the longer lasting. Yeah, right. 20 minutes. Like that's going to happen with me. Let's put this up and look at the comments. What? Okay. We got this one. There we go. All right. Okay, the last time I looked was when Laura joined, so I'm going to go back up to here a little bit further up. Play some music while I'm doing that. Laura loves this topic. You know, I can't even imagine, Laura. I just, when I think about, my first awareness of you was in that documentary. And when I saw, the only thing in that documentary that really got my attention in a guttural way was your conversation with your dad, because I have never seen a Scientology conversation on camera. I mean, I've been in many of them, obviously, right? I was FSMIC in LA at the Melrose Mission, about her, CC Int, Pack Base, but that was such a rare thing to see for me. I had not ever seen that yet, and now that I know, I can put a face to the name to the face, direct connection. Like, holy shit! How this is your favorite topic is understandable, because when for me, whenever I learned something was happening in regards to my domestic stuff and my history, I became completely obsessed with learning everything I could about it. So I understand that. Amy points out that it only classifies as a disorder if it affects your life negatively. Right. So narcissism. Yeah. Problem with narcissistic personality disorder diagnoses is that they will likely never allow a psychiatrist to get even close to them. Becca said, "Oh, that hit hard." I'm not sure what hit hard, but I'm glad things are hitting hard. Hey, Willie, welcome. And Becca, welcome. Andrew D, gotta go. Have a great day. You too, buddy. Hydration. This is Dreams Don't Come True, song I wrote. Willie, my mother went through something similar, but there was no legal action. Her uncle just died. There was no legal action. But when he died, she felt safe. Nothing moves quickly in U.S. court. Yeah, you're right. That was Witness. slower than I talk. Witness angry face? Wonder what that's about. Probably something I was saying. Belladonna, what you are reading rings true. The system tears apart families. Children can end up in foster care as well as with foster parents receiving money from the state. Now that is a great point to bring up, because actually I kept wanting to report her to the Child Protective Services, and he was like, no. And I'm like, why? And he's like, there is a chance that could happen. I'm like, well, how much of a chance? He's like, it's not worth taking. And he was right. Great comment, Belladonna. Brian Lucas, I think the universe that me and my ex never had kids would have made the divorce a lot messier. Yeah. Oh, man. Thank God, dude. And your ruin is women, is what you told me. So, yeah, fuck your life if that would have happened. Like, yeah. You know, I'm a survivor and all that, but like, you go through these things, and it's nearly impossible for me to not have ever thought, and I would be lying to you if I told you I hadn't thought about just checking out, right? Like, it's just too much. So, moving forward, being aware and as conscious as possible, and look for the things, and be tread lightly, and take your time, because it is sure not fun to go through these kinds of things when you've had an adverse, childhood. It's not fun even if you haven't, but it complicates things even more. Okay, Dawn. The family breakup scenario is the psychological tactics of the New World Order program that's been going on for years. I don't know what you're talking about. What New World Order program? I mean, I know Ministry has a kick-ass song called New World Order. And that was in the 90s, and it's about, the New World Order taking over. Globalization. This was, a hot political topic, and a good base for punk rock music and conspiracy theories. But I don't, I will say that, the American nuclear family paradigm is gone. And if that's part of the New World Order's shtick, then that, I guess you're right. Free Xenu Project. I feel sick for you. Well, you don't have to, because I was plenty sick. I was so sick I had to have 3 surgeries. So, orders will be beach. Orders will be broken, unfortunately. My daughter's partner is currently battling with his ex over their children. He has had to take it back to court next month because she has broken the order. Yeah, well, in my case, orders aren't even broken. They're just not even followed to begin with. I have to walk that thin white line, or red line, whatever you want to call it. Walk that tiny little tightrope of a line. And if I step even so much as a fucking centimeter out of there, boy, am I in some deep shit. But she can just flagrantly ignore every single order and every single judgment with absolutely no repercussions. And the court will, Linkage, who decided on the case, what she did as an amends to me, because she realized what had happened, was she awarded me this was what she said, awarded me the ability to claim the child tax credit or income so long as I paid my child support, which was the absolute minimum and still is, because she knew I had no way to fucking pay it. So she was like, well, if you are able to pay it, then you'll be able to, basically, it was almost like a incentivized stimulus. Like, if you can keep working and keep paying this, then every year, instead of her getting all of the earned income credit, then you'll get it. And that's still the case if I catch up on my arrears. But anyways, good comment, Beach. Bach Buddy, I think lawyer friend Zach described court expert witnesses as testimonial whores. Yeah, man, I guess so. Brian, Willie Weed, time and patience. That's usually what it takes. And that's what a lot of people don't have, including yours truly. Well, try to be more patient with yourself, Brian. Give yourself a break, dude. Free Unity Project. My last statement was to Marcus and anyone that went through this. Yeah, I mean, I joined a bunch of groups because these people, the Father's Rights movement is not a popular thing anymore because it's like part of the patriarchy, I guess. But I was in this group, and I've talked to dudes that I don't even one time I talked to them, but they're having a fucking meltdown. And that's what that's for. It's like for someone to call you and tell you their story and what's going on, and it's heartbreaking. Some of these guys are very suicidal, as I was. You go to take away your children. Yeah. Mock Midokigal, it's insane unless you lived it, because people don't want to acknowledge something that malicious to be too common for their own comfort. Yeah. You don't want to know that there's a monster right outside. You don't want to know that your neighbor's a monster. Willie Weed, I've heard Louisiana in the 70s and 80s was a different world from the rest of the country. That is a good comment, and it is true, because like I said, I grew up on an A1 ag land, basically the equivalent of what a kid would have grown up with, like in the 1960s. We were 20 years behind everyone else, so 80s minus 20. But it depended on how wealthy you were. Most kids whose parents had jobs at the industrial plants for a generation or two were much better off, and they lived the sort of like Hollywood 1980s experience. Great comment. Well, Willie, this is you said this is making me so thankful for the parents I had. I am grateful that you had the parents that you had too, my man. Super grateful. Tim Greenglass, if you think about it, everyone is literally made from their parents. Well, yeah. Witness, I'm glad your mom left him. Me too. Willie Weed, we're just a mixture of our life experiences. Yeah. Seems everyone is in support of my mother leaving Ira, so I'll let her know that. And after 53 years is really amazing. Getting close to the end here. Witness, I fucking love New Order. Okay, Don Lambert. Presidents and world leaders have been talking about it for years. Well, George Bush talked about it. The New World Order. In fact, it's sampled in the song New World Order by Ministry. It's a kick-ass song. Highly recommend it. It's on the album Psalm 69. Well, Don, we'll just have to... You say it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. I mean, we can disagree. You know, I'm definitely not opposed to the idea that there are extremely wealthy people who control things, many things that affect everyone else, you know, and that the world kind of bends to their whims. But as to like an organized structure, like what you would see on the cover of a Megadeth album in 1989, Rust in Peace, where you have all the world leaders, and I mean, you might as well throw aliens in there and all that too. Like, the supposition isn't something that I would disagree with, but to declare it as a fact, I would not. Lorna Huddleston, from a poet user. I lucked out and had no kids. Much easier divorce. It sucked in other ways, though. Indeed. Like I don't have any kids, and I'm all alone in the world. Well, you're here with us this morning. We ran over by about 18 minutes. According to my broadcast recommended. The Vidic AI said, make a video that's 12 minutes long. Well, we're running at 2 hours and 18 minutes. And I think we've covered pretty much everything that I wanted to. And everything that the Vidic AI wanted me to. So, and I've gone over most of the comments. If there was anything else that anyone had, that's I'll give you 60 seconds. 60 seconds. Starting now. Well, that was 60 seconds. I'm glad y'all enjoyed that instrument. I'm glad you enjoyed that, Tim. I'd like to re-record it. If you need a book recommendation, I can recommend the
Serendipity Mindset by Christian Bush. I'm about that way far through it. I also recommend The Anatomy of Anxiety and The Power of Regret, how looking backwards can move you forward. Those are my 3 book recommendations for this summer. Otherwise, I'm going to, yeah, that's a wrap for today. Thank you, everyone, for checking this out, tuning in. I know there's replay watchers that watch this stuff because it's Monday morning. Let's face it; these are heavy Monday morning deals. So, props to y'all who are like early birds and are ready for this at 10 in the morning on a Monday. Wherever you are in the world, it may not be 10 in the morning, but as per usual, live long and prosper. And I'll catch you guys next Monday or during the week on some other creator broadcast. I'm going to do courtesy fade.